Oh, man. I apologize. Hold on. Is this working? 1 second. Just need to download this. Wait. Where's the download? Oh, there it is. You. And then, all right. Get this running in the background here. Effect. Nope. Pass this. All right. Okay. Did not work. All right. All righty then. And let's see. Got everything up and going. We got this. We got a little bit of that. Whew. This is a little bit zoomed in. So, hey, Roman. Good to see you. Yeah, no worries. I appreciate you swinging by and saying hi. We're just gonna read us a book here. Sorry, I was running a little late trying to pick up the dog, and it was lots of rain and etc. But anyway, yeah, thanks for swinging on by and get a good sleep. Get some good relaxing in. Everyone needs good relaxing and good sleep. Okay. Hold on 1 second. We've got a dog running up and downstairs in the other room, so I'm just gonna close the door. I'll be right back. No, you're good. Okay. We go. Bee and the dog are playing ball on the stairs, as we should be. A mildly wet dog, yes. Yeah, not completely drenched, but definitely mildly damp. Who doesn't like that? I just closed the door. Oh, 1 sec. You know? Okay. You have it open. Potato doesn't like it if I close the door, even though he's not coming into the room. Oh, now he came into the room. Hi, Potato. What's up? What's going on?
He was totally fine with you being in here until you closed the door.
And then,
no.
Wait a minute.
This is unacceptable. Ooh, what do I
have? Silly dog. Yeah. Mildly damp dog sprinting up and down the stairs. He was at camp all day. Like, I don't understand how he still has energy, but you know, there it is. Anyway, so we are returning to the world of Terry Pratchett. Focus. Got a lot of stuff going on, and so we all brain is in different places. Preparing. Oh, that reminds me. Next week and the week after, I might not have the ability to stream. We'll see what the setup is. I'm going to be traveling first for a conference and then just to do some traveling for some vacation. So I will be out for a couple of weeks. I will see if I'm able to stream, but I don't know. If I do, it'll be kind of a janky setup, so we'll see. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Let's do this. Okay. So, where is it? Right. Herney was the god of the chased and the hunted, and all small animals whose ultimate destiny it is to be an abrupt, damp squeak. He was about 3 feet tall, 3 feet high, with rabbit ears and very small horns, but he did have an extremely good turn of speed, and was using it to the full as he tore madly through the woods. They're coming! They're all coming back! Who are? Said Jason Og. He was holding his thumb in the water trough. Nanny Og sighed. Uh, them, she said. You know, them. We ain't certain, but who's them? Nanny hesitated. There are some things you didn't tell ordinary people. On the other hand, Jason was a blacksmith, which meant he wasn't ordinary. Blacksmiths had to keep secrets, and he was family. Nanny Og had an adventurous youth and wasn't very good at counting, but she was pretty certain he was her son. You see, she said, waving her hands vaguely, them stones and the dancers, see, in the old days, see, once upon a time. She stopped and tried again to explain the essentially fractal nature of reality. Like, there's some places that are thinner than others, where the old doorways used to be. Well, not doorways, never exactly understood it myself. Not doorways as such, more places where the world is thinner. Anyway, the thing is, the dancers are kind of a fence. Well, when I say we, I mean thousands of years ago. I mean, but they're not just stones. They're some kind of thunderbolt iron. But there's these things like tides, only not with water. And when the worlds get closer together and you can nearly step between them. Anyway, if people have been hanging around the stones and playing around, then they'll be back if we're not careful. What? They? That's the whole trouble, said Nanny Og miserably. If I tells you, you'll get it all wrong. They lives on the other side of the dancers. Her son stared at her. Then a faint grin of realization wandered across his face. Ah, he says, I knows. I heard them wizards down in Ankh is always accidentally ripping holes in the fabric of reality they got down there, and you get them horrible things coming out of the dungeon dimensions, huge buggers with dozens of eyeballs and more legs than the Morris team. He gripped his number 5 hammer. Don't you worry, Mom. If they starts popping around here, we'll soon... No, it ain't like that, said Nanny. Those live outside, but them lives over there. Jason looked completely lost. Nanny shrugged. She'd have to tell someone sooner or later. The lords and ladies, she said. Who are they? Nanny looked around, but after all, this was a forge. There had been a forge here long before there was a castle, long before there even was a kingdom. There were horseshoes everywhere. Iron had just entered the very walls. It wasn't just a place of iron. It was a place where iron died and was reborn. If you couldn't speak the words here, you couldn't speak them anywhere. Even so, she'd rather not. You know, she said, the fair folk, the gentry, the shining ones, the star people. You know. What? Nanny put her hand on the anvil just in case and said the word. Jason's frown very gently cleared at about the same speed as the sunrise. Them, he said, but they're nice and... See? Nanny, I told you you'd get it wrong. How much? Said ridiculously. The coachman shrugged. Take it or leave it, he said. I'm sorry, sir, said Ponder Stibbins. It's the only couch. $50 each is daylight robbery. Nope, said the coachman patiently. Daylight robbery, he said, in the authoritative tones of the experienced, is when someone steps out into the road with an arrow pointing at us, and then all his friends swing down from the rocks and trees and take away all our money and things. And then there's nighttime robbery, which is like daytime robbery, except they set fire to the coach so they can see what they're about. Twilight robbery. Now, your basic twilight robbery is... Are you saying, said ridiculously, that getting robbed is included in the price? Bandits Guild, said the coachman. $40 per head, see? It's kind of a flat rate. What happens if we don't pay it? Said ridiculously. You end up flat. The wizards went into a huddle. We've got $150, said ridiculously. We can't get more out of the safe because Bursar ate the key yesterday. Can I try an idea, sir? Said Ponder. All right. Ponder gave the coachman a bright smile. Pets travel free, he suggested. Ook. Nanny Ogg's broomstick skimmed a few feet above the forest paths, cornering so fast that her boots scraped through the leaves. She swept off at Granny Weatherwax's cottage so quickly that she didn't switch it off, and kept it going until it stuck in the privy. The door was open. Cooey! Nanny glanced up the scullery and then thumped up the small, narrow staircase. Granny Weatherwax was stretched rigid on her bed. Her face was gray, her skin was cold. People had discovered her like this before, and it always caused embarrassment. So now she reassured visitors, but tempted fate by always holding in her small, rigid hands, a small handwritten sign which said, "I ain't dead." The window was propped open with a piece of wood. Said Nanny, far more for her own benefit than for anyone else's. "I sees you're out. I'll just put a kettle on, shall I, and wait till you comes back." Esme's skill at borrowing unnerved her. It was all very well entering the minds of animals and such, but too many witches had never come back. For several years, Nanny had put out lumps of fat and bacon rind for a blue tit that she was sure was old Granny Postulate, who'd gone out borrowing one day and never come back. And so far as a witch could consider things uncanny, Nanny Ogg considered it uncanny. She went back down to the scullery and lowered a bucket down the well, remembering to fish the newts out this time before she boiled the kettle. Then she watched the garden. After a while, a small shape fluttered across it and headed towards the upstairs window. Nanny poured out the tea. She carefully took 1 spoon of sugar out of the sugar basin and tipped the rest of the sugar into her cup and put a spoonful back in the basin, and put both cups on a tray and climbed the stairs. Granny Weatherwax was sitting up in her bed. Nanny looked around. There was a large bat hanging upside down from a beam. Granny Weatherwax rubbed her ears. "Shove the Poe under it, will you, Geitha?" she mumbled. "They're devil for excusing themselves on the carpet." Nanny unearthed the shyest article of Granny Weatherwax's bedroom crockery and moved it across the rug with her foot. "I brought you a cup of tea," she said. "Good job, too. Mouth tastes of moss," said Granny. "Thought you did owls at night." "Yeah, but you ends up for days trying to twist your head right around," said Granny. "At least bats always faces the right way. Tried rabbits first, but you know what they are for remembering things. Anyway, you know what they thinks about the whole time. They're famous for it." "Grass? Right." "Find out anything?" said Nanny. "Half a dozen people have been going up there every full moon," said Granny. "Gals by the shape of them. You can only see silhouettes with bats." You done well there," said Nanny carefully. "Girls from around here, you reckon?" "Got to be. They ain't using broomsticks." Nanny Ogg sighed. "There's Agnes Knit, old Threepenny's daughter," she said, "and Tockery Girl, and then some others." Granny Weatherwax looked at her with her mouth open. "I asked our Jason," she said. "Sorry." The bat burped, and Granny genteelly covered her hand with her mouth. "I'm a silly old fool, ain't I?" she said after a while. No," said Nanny. "Borrowing's a real skill, and you're pretty good at it." "Prideful is what I am. Once upon a time, I'd have thought of asking people too instead of fooling around being a bat." "Our Jason wouldn't have told you. He only told me because I would have made his life a living hell if he didn't," said Nanny Ogg. "That's what a mother's for." "I'm losing my touch. That's what it is. Getting old, Geitha. You're as old as you feel. That's what I always say." "That's what I mean." Nanny Ogg looked worried. "Supposing McGrath had been here, she'd see me being daft." "Well, she's safe in the castle," said Nanny, "learning how to be a queen. At least the thing about queening," said Granny, "is that no one notices if you're doing it wrong. It has to be right, because it's you doing it." "It's a funny thing, royalty," said Nanny. It's like magic. You take some gal with a bum like 2 pigs in a blanket and a head full of air, and she marries a king or prince or someone, and suddenly she's this radiant, right, royal princess. It's a funny old world. "I ain't gonna kowtow to her mind," said Granny. "You never kowtow to anyone anyway," said Nanny Ogg patiently. "You never bow to the old king. You barely notice young Varence, and you barely give young Varence a nod. You never kowtows to anyone ever. Anyway." "That's right," said Granny. "That's part of being a witch, that is." Nanny relaxed a bit. Granny being an old woman made her uneasy. Granny, in her normal state of barely controlled anger, was far more her old self. Granny stood up. "Old Tockley's girl, eh?" "That's right." "Her mother was from Keble, wasn't she? Fine woman, as I recall." "Yeah, but when she died, the old man sent her off to Stolat to school." "Don't hold with schools," said Granny Weatherwax. "They gets in the way of education, all them books." "Books, what is they good? What good are they? There's too much reading these days. We never had time to read when I was young, I know that. We were too busy making our own entertainment." "Right. Come on, we ain't got much time." "What do you mean?" It's not just the girls. There's something out there, too. Some kind of mind moving around. Granny shivered. She'd always been aware of it. She'd been aware of it in the same way a skilled hunter moving through the hills is aware of another hunter, by silences where there should have been noise, by the trampling of a stem, by the anger of the bees. Nanny Og had never liked the idea of borrowing, and Magrat had always refused to give it a try. The old witches, on the other side of the mountain, had too much trouble with the inconvenient in-body experiences to cope with the out-of-body kind, so Granny was used to having the mental dimension to herself. There was a mind moving around the kingdom, and Granny Weatherwax didn't understand it. She borrowed. You had to be careful. It was like a drug. You could ride the minds of animals and birds, but never bees. Steering them gently, seeing through their eyes, Granny Weatherwax had many times flicked through the channels of consciousness around her. It was, to her, part of the heart of witchcraft, to see through others' eyes, through the eyes of gnats, seeing the slow patterns of time in the fast patterns of one day, their mind traveling rapidly as lightning, to listen with the body of a beetle, so that the world is a three-dimensional pattern of vibrations, to see with the nose of a dog, all smells now colors. But there was a price. No one asked you to pay it, but the very absence of demand was a moral obligation. You tended not to swat. You dug lightly. You fed the dog. You paid. You cared, not because it was kind or good, but because it was right. You left nothing but memories. You took nothing but experience. But this other roving intelligence, it'd go in and out of another mind like a chainsaw. Taking. Hey, Mark. How's it going? Month number 4. Thanks for being here for 4 months, or more than 4 months, but at least 4 months. But this other roving intelligence, it'd go in and out of another mind like a chainsaw, taking. You could sense the shape of it, the predatory shape, all cruelty and cool unkindness. A mind full of intelligence. They'd use other living things and hurt them because it was fun. She could put a name to a mind like that. Elf. Branches thrashed high in the trees. Granny and Nanny strode through the forest. At least Granny Weatherwax strode. Nanny scurried. The lords and ladies are trying to find a way, said Granny. And there's something else. Something's already come through. Some kind of animal from the other side. Scrope chased a deer into the circle, and the other thing must have been there. And they always used to say something can go through if something goes the other way. What thing? You know what a bat's eyesight's like. It's just big shape is all I Something killed old Scrope. It's still around. Not one of the lords and ladies, said Granny, but something from that place. And Nanny looked at the shadows. There are a lot of shadows in the forest at night. Ain't you scared? She said. Granny cracked her knuckles. No, but I hope it is. Ooh, it's true what they say. You're a prideful one, Esmeralda Weatherwax. Who says that? Well, you did, just now. I wasn't feeling well. Other people would probably say I wasn't myself, but Granny Weatherwax didn't have anyone else to be. The 2 witches hurried on to the glade. From the shelter of a thorn thicket, the unicorn watched them go. Diamanda Tockley did indeed wear a floppy black velvet hat. It had a veil, too. Perdita Knit, who had once been merely Agnes Knit before she got witchcraft, wore a black hat with a veil too, because Diamanda did. Both of them were 17, and she wished she was naturally skinny like Diamanda. But if you can't be skinny, you can at least look unhealthy, so she wore so much thick white makeup in order to conceal her naturally rosy complexion that if she turned around suddenly, her face would probably end up on the back of her head. They'd done the raising of the cone of power and some candle magic and some scrying. Now Diamanda was showing them how to do the cards. She said they contained the distilled wisdom of the ancients. Perdita found herself treacherously wondering who these ancient were. They clearly weren't the same as old people who were stupid, Diamanda said, but she wasn't quite clear why they were wiser than, say, modern people. Also, she didn't understand what the feminine principle was, and she wasn't too clear about this inner self business. She was coming to suspect that she didn't have one. and she wished she could do her eyes like Diamanda did, and wished she could wear heels like Diamanda did. Amanda Device, Amanita Device had told her that Diamanda slept in a real coffin. She wished she had the nerve to have a skull and dagger tattoo on her arm like Emma, gonna try this again. Emma Nita. There we go. Like Emma Nita did, even if it was only ordinary ink and she had to wash it off every night in case her mother saw it. A tiny, nasty voice from Perdita's inner self suggested that Amanita wasn't a good choice of name, or Perdita for that matter, and it said that maybe Perdita shouldn't meddle with things she didn't understand. The trouble was, she knew that meant nearly everything. She wished she could wear black lace like Diamanda did. Diamanda got results. Perdita wouldn't have believed it. She always had known about witches, of course. They were the old women who dressed like crows, except for McGraw Garlic, who was frankly mental, and always looked as if she was going to burst into tears. Perdita remembered McGraw bringing a guitar to a hogwash night party once and singing wobbly folk songs with her eyes shut in a way that suggested she really believed them. She hadn't been able to play, but this was all right because she couldn't sing either. People had applauded because, well, what else could you do? Let's go, Streak! Mark, you're awesome. I appreciate you. But Diamanda had read books. She knew about stuff, raising power at the stones, for one thing. It really worked. Currently, she was showing them the cards. The wind had got up again tonight. It rattled the shutters and made the soot fall down the chimney. It seemed to Perdita that it had blown all the shadows into the corners of the room. "Are you paying attention, sister?" said Diamanda coldly. That was another thing. You had to call one another sister out of fraternity. Yes, Diamanda, she said meekly. "This is the moon," said Diamanda repeated, "for those who weren't paying attention." She held up the card. "And what do you see here, you Muscara?" It's got a picture of a moon on it," said Muscara, nay Susan, in a hopeful voice. "Of course it's not the moon. It's a non-mimetic convention not tied to a conventional referencing system, actually," said Diamanda. "Ah." A gust rocked the cottage. The door burst open and slammed back against the wall, giving a glimpse of a cloud-racked sky in which a non-mimetic convention was showing a crescent. Diamanda waved a hand, and there was a brief flash of octarine light. The door jerked shut. Diamanda smiled in what Perdita thought of her cool, knowing way. She placed the card on the black velvet cloth in front of her. Perdita looked at it gloomily. It was all very pretty. The cards were colored like little little pasteboard jewels, and they had interesting names, but the little trader voice whispered, "How the hell can they know the future? Cardboard isn't very bright." On the other hand, the coven was helping people, more or less, raising power and all that sort of thing. Oh dear. Supposing she asked me? Perdita realized that she was feeling worried. Something was wrong. It had just gone wrong, and she didn't know what it was, but it had gone wrong now. She looked up. "Blessings be upon this house," said Granny Weatherwax, in much the same tone of voice that people said, "Eat hot lead, Kincaid," and "I expect you're wondering after all that excitement whether I've got any balloons and lampshades left." Diamanda's mouth dropped open. "Here, you're doing that wrong. You don't want to muck about with a hand like that," said Nanny Ogg, helpfully looking over her shoulder. "You've got a double onion there." "Who are you?" Suddenly, they were there, Perdita thought. 1 minute they're shadows, and the next minute they were there, solid as anything. "What's all this chalk on the floor then?" said Nanny Ogg. "You got this chalk on the floor and heathen writing. Not that I get anything against heathens," she added. She appeared to think about that one. "I'm practically one myself," she said further, "but I don't write on the floor. What'd you go write all on the floor for?" She nudged Perdita. "You'll never get the chalk out," she said. "It gets right in the grain." It's a magic circle," said Perdita. "Hello, Mrs. Ogg. It's to keep away bad influences." Granny Weatherwax leaned forward slightly. "Tell me, my dear," she said to Diamanda, "do you think it's working?" She leaned forward further. Diamanda leaned backwards. and then slowly leaned forwards again. They ended up nose to nose. "Who's this?" said Diamond out of the corner of her mouth. It's Granny Weatherwax," said Perdita. "She's a witch." What level?" said Diamanda. Nanny Og looked around for something to hide behind. Granny Weatherwax's eyebrows twitched. "Level, eh?" she said. "Well, I suppose I'm level 1. "Just starting," said Diamanda. Oh dear, I tell you what," said Nanny Og quietly to Perdita. "If we turn the table over, we could probably hide behind it, no problem." But to herself, she was thinking, "Esme can never resist a challenge. None of us can. You ain't a witch if you ain't got self-confidence. But we're not getting any younger, and it's like being a hired sword fighter being top witch. You think you're good, but you know there's got to be someone younger practicing every day, polishing up their craft, and one day you're walking down the road and you hears a voice behind you saying, 'Go for your toad,' or something similar. Even for Esme, sooner or later she'll come up against someone faster on the craftiness than she is." "Oh, yes," said Granny quietly. "Just starting. Every day, just starting." Niniog thought, "But it won't be today." "You stupid old woman," said Diamanda. "You don't frighten me. Oh, yes, I know all about the way you old ones frighten superstitious peasants, actually. Muttering and squinting, it's all in the mind. Simple psychology, it's not real witchcraft." I'll just go into the scullery and see if I could fill any buckets with water, shall I?" said Nanny Og, to no one in particular. "I expect you know all about witchcraft," said Granny Weatherwax. "I'm studying, yes," said Diamanda. Nanny Og realized she had removed her own hat and was biting nervously at the brim. "Expect you're really good at it," said Granny Weatherwax. "Quite good," said Diamanda. "Show me." "She is good," thought Nanny Og. "She's been facing down Esme's stair for more than a minute. Even snakes generally give up after a minute." If a fly had darted through the few inches of space between their stairs, it would have flashed into flame in the air. "I learned my craft from Nanny Gripes," said Granny Weatherwax, who learned it from Goody Heggedy, who got it from Nana Plum, who was taught by Black Alice, who... "So what you're saying is," said Diamanda, loading the words into the sentence like cartridges into a chamber, "that no one has actually learned anything new." The silence that followed was broken by Nanny Og saying, "Bugger, I've bit right through the rim. Right through." "I see," said Granny Weatherwax. "Look," said Nanny Og hurriedly, nudging the trembling Perdita. "Right through the lining and everything. $2 in curing a pig this hat cost me. That's $2 in a pig cure I shan't see again in a hurry." "So you can just go away, old woman," said Diamanda. "But we ought to meet again," said Granny Weatherwax. The old witch and the young witch weighed one another. "Midnight," said Diamanda. "Midnight? Nothing special about midnight. Practically anyone could be a witch at midnight," said Granny Weatherwax. "How's noon?" Certainly. What are we fighting for?" said Diamanda. "Fighting? We ain't fighting. We're just showing each other what we can do. Friendly-like," said Granny Weatherwax. She stood up. "I'd better be going," she said. "Us old people need our sleep, you know how it is." "What does the winner get?" says Diamanda. There was just a trace of uncertainty in her voice now. It was very faint on the Richter scale of doubt. It was probably no more than a plastic teacup 5 miles away falling on a low shelf onto the carpet, but it was there. "Oh, the winner gets the win," said Granny Weatherwax. "That's what it's all about. Don't bother to see us out. You didn't see us in." The door slammed back. "Simple psychokinesis," said Diamanda. "Oh, well, that's all right then," said Granny Weatherwax, disappearing into the night. "Explains it all, that does." Let's say. There used to be such simple directions back in the day before they invented parallel universes. Up, down, right, left, backwards and forwards, past and future. But normal directions don't work in the multiverse, which has far too many dimensions for anyone to find their way. So new ones have to be invented so that the way can be found. Like east of the sun, west of the moon, or behind the north wind, or at the back of beyond, or there and back again, or beyond the fields we know. And sometimes there's a shortcut, a door or a gate, some standing stones, a tree cleft by lightning, a filing cabinet, maybe just a spot on some moorland somewhere, a place where there is very nearly here. Nearly, but not quite. There's enough leakage to make pendulums swing and psychics get nasty headaches, and to give a house a reputation for being haunted, to make the occasional pot hurl across the room. There's enough leakage to make the drones fly guard. Oh, yes, the drones. There are things called drone assemblies. Sometimes on fine summer days, the drones from hives for miles will congregate in some spot and fly circles in the air, buzzing like tiny early warning systems, which is what they are. Bees are sensible. It's a human world, but bees are creatures of order, and programmed into their very genes is a hatred of chaos. Some people once knew where such a spot was if they had experience of what happens when here and there become entangled. Then they might, if they knew how, mark such a spot with certain stones in the hope that enough daft buggers would take it as a warning and keep away. Yeah, I know. Stupid wormholes. I don't know. There's something powerful about that description. Maybe it's just me. It gets me all riled up. Anyway. There's sometimes... Sorry, I'm going to go off on a little tangent now. There are sometimes when you put together certain types of writing where it, like... It builds its own momentum. And it just kind of pulls you through the writing until you come out on the other side and you have like tears in your eyes. You're not really sure why. There's something about it that just drags you. I need to figure out how to write like that. If you can write like that, you're a good writer. That's what I need to figure out. Anyway. Well, what'd you think? Said Granny as the witches hurried home. The little fat quiet one's got a bit of natural talent, said Nanny Og. I could feel it. The rest of them are just along for the excitement, you mind, playing at witches. You know, Ouija boards and cards and wearing black lace gloves with no fingers on them and paddling with the occult. I don't hold with paddling with the occult, said Granny firmly. Once you start paddling with the occult, you start believing in spirits. And when you start believing in spirits, you start believing in demons. And then before you know it, you're believing in gods, and then you're in trouble. But all them things exist, said Nanny Og. There's no call to go around believing in them. It only encourages them, said Granny Weatherwax. She slowed to a walk. What about her, she said. What exactly do you mean? You felt the power. Oh, yeah, it made my hair stand on end. Someone gave it to her, and I know who, just a slip of a gal with a head full of wet ideas out of books, and suddenly she's got power, and she doesn't know how to deal with it. Cards, candles, that's not witchcraft. It's just party games, paddling with the occult. Do you see she's got black fingernails? Well, mine ain't so clean. I mean painted. I used to paint toenails red when I was young, said Nanny wistfully. Toenails is different. So's red. Anyway, you only did it to appear alluring. It worked, too. They walked along in silence for a bit. Felt a lot of power there, said Nanny Og eventually. Yes, I know. A lot. Yes. I'm not saying you couldn't beat her, said Nanny quickly. I'm not saying anything like that, but I don't reckon I could. And it seemed to me it'd raise you quite a bit of sweat even on you. You'll have to hurt her to beat her. I'm losing my judgment, ain't I? Oh, she riled me, Gaitha. Couldn't help myself. Now I've got a duel with a gal of 17, and if I wins, I'm a wicked, bullying old witch, and if I loses... She kicked up a drift of old leaves. Can't stop myself, that's my trouble. Nanny Og said nothing. And I loses my temper over the least little... Yes, but I ain't finished talking. Sorry, Esme. A bat fluttered by, and Granny nodded to it. Heard how McGrath's coming along, she said in a tone of voice that forced casualness embraced like a corset. Settling in fine, Harshawn says. Right. They reached a crossroads. The white dust glowed very faintly in the moonlight. One way led to Lancre, the other where Nanny Og lived. Another eventually got lost in the forest, became a footpath, and then a track, and eventually reached Granny Weatherwax's cottage. When shall we... two meet again, said Nanny Og. Listen, said Granny Weatherwax. She's well out of it, do you hear? She'll be a lot happier as a queen. I never said nothing, said Nanny Og mildly. I know you never. I could hear you not saying anything. You've got the loudest silences I ever did hear from anyone who wasn't dead. See you about 11 o'clock then. Right. The wind got up again as Granny walked along the track to her cottage. She knew she was on edge. There was too much to do. She'd got McGrath sorted out, and Nanny could look after herself, but the lords and the ladies, she hadn't counted on them. The point was that Granny Weatherwax had a feeling she was going to die, and it was beginning to get on her nerves. Knowing the time of your death is one of those strange bonuses that comes with being a true magic user. And on the whole, it is a bonus. Many a wizard has passed away happily drinking the last of his wine cellar and incidentally owing a very large sums of money. Granny Weatherwax had always wondered how it felt, what it was that you suddenly saw looming up, and what it turned out to be was a blankness. People think that they live life as a moving dot traveling from past to future with memories streaming out behind them like some kind of mental commentary tale. But memory spreads in front as well as behind. It's just that most humans aren't good at dealing with it. And so it arrives as premonitions or forebodings, intuitions and hunches. Witches are good at dealing with it. And to suddenly find a blank where those tendrils of the future should be, as much as it has much the same effect on a witch as emerging from a cloud bank and seeing a team of Sherpas looking down on him does to an airline pilot. She got a few days, and that was it. She's always expected to have a bit of time to herself in the garden, to get the garden in order, to have a good cleanup around the place so that whichever witch took over wouldn't think she'd been a sloven, pick out a decent burial plot, and then spend some time sitting in the rocking chair, doing nothing at all except for looking at the trees and thinking about the past. Now, no chance. And the other things were happening. Her memory seemed to be playing up. Perhaps this is what happened. Perhaps she just drained away towards the end, like old Nanny Gripes, who ended up putting the cat on the stove and the kettle out for the night. Granny shut the door and behind her and lit a candle. There was a box in the dresser drawer. She opened it in the kitchen table and took out a carefully folded piece of paper. There was a pen and ink on it too. After some thought, she picked up where she had left off. And to my friend Gaitha Og, I leave my bed and the rug the smith and badass made for me, and the matching jug and basin, and what's his name set she always had her eye on, and my broomsticks, what will be right as rain with a bit of work. To McGrath Garlic, I leave the contents elsewhere in this box, my silver tea service with a milk jug in the shape of a humorous cow, what is an heirloom, also the clock, what belonged to my mother, but I charge her to always keep it wound, for when the clock stops, there was a noise outside. If anyone else had been in the room with her, Granny Weatherwax would have thrown open the door boldly. But she was by herself. She picked up the poker very carefully and moved surprisingly soundlessly to the door, given the nature of her boots, and listened intently. There was something in the garden. It wasn't much of a garden. There were herbs and soft fruit bushes and a bit of lawn and, of course, the beehives. And was open to the woods. The local wildlife knew better than to invade a witch's garden. Granny opened the door carefully. The moon was setting. Pale silver light turned the world into monochrome. There was a unicorn in her lawn. The stink of it hit her. Granny advanced, holding the poker in front of her. The unicorn backed away and pawed at the ground. Granny saw the future plain. She already knew when. Now she was beginning to apprehend how. So, she said under her breath, I knows where you came from, and you damn well get back there. The thing made a feint at her, but the poker swung toward it. Can't stand the iron, eh? Well, you just trot back to your mistress and tell her that we know all about iron in Lancre, and I knows about her. She's to keep her away, understand? This is my place. Then it was moonlight. Now it is day. There was quite a crowd in what passed for Lancre's main square. Not much happened in Lancre anyway, and a duel between witches was a sight worth seeing. Granny Weatherwax arrived at 1:15. Nanny Og was waiting on a bench by the tavern. She had a towel around her neck and was carrying a bucket of water in which floated a sponge. "What's that for?" said Granny. "Halftime, and I done you a plate of oranges." She held up the plate. Granny snorted. "You look as if you could do with some eating something anyway," said Nanny. "You don't look as if you've had anything today." She glanced down at Granny's boots and the grubby hem of her long black dress. There were scraps of bracken and bits of heather caught in it. "You daft old besom," she hissed. What have you been doing?" "I had to. You've been up at the stones, haven't you, trying to hold back the gentry?" "Of course," said Granny. Her voice wasn't faint. She wasn't swaying, but her voice wasn't faint and she wasn't swaying, Nanny Og could see, because Granny Weatherwax's body was in the grip of Granny Weatherwax's mind. "Someone's got to," she added. "You could have me come instead. You'd have talked me out of it." Nanny Og leaned forward. "You all right, Esme?" "Fine, I'm fine. Nothing wrong with me, all right?" "Have you had any sleep at all?" she said. "Well, you haven't, have you? And then you just think you can stroll down here and confound this girl just like that?" "I don't know," said Granny Weatherwax. Nanny Og looked hard at her. "You don't, do you?" she said in a softer tone of voice. "Oh, well, you'd better sit down here before you fall down. Suck an orange. They'll be here in a few minutes." "No, she won't," said Granny. "She'll be late." "How do you know?" "No good making an entrance if everyone isn't there to see you do it. That's headology." In fact, the young coven arrived 12 and took up station in the steps of the market pentangle on the other side of the square. "Look at 'em," said Granny Weatheraxe. "All in black again." "Well, we wear black too," said Nanny Og, the reasonable. "Only 'cause it's respectable and serviceable," said Granny morosely. "Not because it's romantic. Ha! Lords and ladies might as well be here already." After some eye contact, Nanny Og ambled across the square and met Perdita in the middle. The young would-be witch looked worried under her makeup. She held a black lace handkerchief in her hands and was twisting it nervously. "Morning, Mrs. Og," she said. "Afternoon, Agnes. What happens now?" Nanny Og took out her pipe and scratched her ear with it. "Don't know. Up to you, I suppose. Diamandis says, why does it have to be here and now? So everyone can seize it," said Nanny Og. "That's the point, ain't it? Nothing's hole and corner about it. Everyone's got to know who's the best at witchcraft, the whole town. Everyone sees the winner win and the loser lose. That way there's no argument, eh?" Perdita glanced towards the tavern. Granny Weatherwax had dozed off. "Quietly confident," said Nanny, crossing her fingers behind her back. "What happens to the loser?" said Perdita. "Nothing really," said Nanny Og. "Generally, she leaves the place. You can't be a witch if people have seen you beat." "Diamandis says she doesn't want to hurt the old lady too much," said Perdita. "Just teach her a lesson." "That's nice. Esme's a quick learner." I wish this wasn't happening, Mrs. Og." "That's nice." "Diamandis says Mrs. Weatherwax has got a very impressive stare, Mrs. Og." "That's nice." "So the test is just staring, Mrs. Og." Nanny put her pipe in her mouth. "Do you mean the old first one to blink or look away challenge?" Yes." "Right," thought Nanny. Nanny thought about it and shrugged. "Right. Oh, best do a magic circle first. Don't want anyone else getting hurt, do we?" Do you mean using the Scorin runes or the triple invocation octagram?" said Perdita. Nanny Og put her head to one side. "Never heard of them things, dear," she said. "I always does a magic circle like this." She sidled crabways away from the fat girl, dragging one toe in the dust. She edged around in a rough circle about 15 feet across, still dragging her boot, until she backed into Perdita. "Sorry. There, done it." "That's a magic circle?" "Right. People can come to harm else. All kinds of magic zipping around the place when witches fight." "You didn't chant or anything." "No. There has to be a chant, doesn't there?" "Don't know, never done one." "Oh, I could sing a comic song if you like," said Nanny helpfully. No. Perdita had never heard Nanny sing, but news gets around. I like your black lace hanky, said Nanny, not a bit abashed. Very good for not showing the boogies. Perdita stared at the circle as though hypnotized. Shall we start then? Right. Nanny Og scurried back to the bench and elbowed Granny in the ribs. Wake up! Granny opened an eye. I weren't asleep, I was just resting my eyes. All you got to do is stare her down. At least she knows about the importance of the stare, then. Ha! Who does she think she is? I've been staring at people all my life. Yes, that's what's bothering me. Who's Nana's little boy, then? The rest of the Og clan had arrived. Granny Weatherwax personally disliked young Pusey. She disliked all small children, which is why she got on so well with them. In Pusey's case, she felt that no one should be allowed to wander about in just a vest, even if they were 4 years old, and the child had a permanently runny nose and ought to be provided with a handkerchief, or failing that, a cork. Nanny Og, on the other hand, it was an instant putty in the hands of any grandchild, even one as sticky as Pusey. Want a sweetie? Oh, I'm sorry. Want a sweetie, growled Pusey in that curiously deep voice some young children have. Just a moment, my duck. I'm just talking to the lady, said Nanny Og flouted. Want a sweetie now? Bugger off, my precious. Nanny's busy right this minute. Pusey pulled her hard on Nanny Og's skirts. Now, sweetie, now! Granny Weatherwax leaned down until her impressive nose was about level with Pusey's gushing one. If you don't go away, she said gravely, I will personally rip off your head and fill it with snakes. There, said Nanny Og. There's lots of poor children in Clatch that'd be grateful for a curse like that. Pusey's little face, after a second or two of uncertainty, split into a pumpkin grin. Funny lady, he said. Tell you what, said Nanny, patting Pusey on the head and then absent-mindedly wiping her hand on her dress. You see them young ladies on the other side of the square? They've got lots of sweeties. Pusey waddled off. That's germ warfare, that is, said Granny Weatherwax. Come on, said Nanny. Our Jason's put a couple of chairs in the circle. You sure you're all right? I'll do. Perdita knit, traipsed across the road again. Mrs. Og, yes, dear. Diamanda says you don't understand. She says they won't be trying to outstare one another. Where are we at? Okay. I think I'm going to do one more section, and then we'll call it for today because my voice is starting to go. But McGraw was bored. She'd never been bored when she was a witch. Permanently bewildered and overworked, yes, but not bored. She kept telling herself it'd probably be better when she really was the queen, although she couldn't quite see how. In the meantime, she wandered aimlessly through the castle's many rooms, the swishing of her dress almost unheard above the background roar of the turbines of tedium. Humdrum, 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 humdrum. She'd spent a whole morning trying to learn to do tapestry because Millie assured her it's what queens did, and the sampler with its message, "God's bless this house," was even now lying forlornly on her chair. The long gallery. In the long gallery were huge tapestries of ancient battles done by previous bored regal incumbents. It was amazing how all the fighters had been persuaded to stay still long enough, and she looked at the many, many paintings of the queens themselves, all of them pretty, all of them well-dressed according to the fashion of their times, and all of them bored out of their tiny, well-shaped skulls. Finally, she went back to the solar. This was the big room on the top of the main tower. In theory, it was there to catch the sun. It did. It also caught the wind and the rain. It was sort of a drift net for anything the sky happened to throw. She yanked on the bell pull that, in theory, summoned a servant. Nothing happened. After a couple further pulls, and secretly glad of the exercise, she went down to the kitchen. She would have liked to spend more time there. It was always warm, and there was genuinely someone to talk to. But noblesse oblige, queens had to live above stairs. Below stairs was only Sean Og, who was cleaning the oven of the huge iron stove, reflecting that this was no job for a military man. Where's everyone gone? Sean leapt up, banging his head on the stove. Ow! Sorry, miss. Everyone's gone down to the square, miss. I'm only here because Mrs. Sorbick said she'd have my hide if I didn't get all the yuck off. What's happening in the square, then? They say there's a couple of witches having a real set to, miss. What? Not your mother and Granny Weatherwax. Oh, no, miss. Some new witch. And Lancre? A new witch? I think that's what Mom says. I'm going to have a look. Oh, I don't think that'd be a good idea, Mrs., said Sean. McGrath drew herself up regally. We happen to be queen, she said. Nearly. So you don't tell one one can't do things, or one will have you cleaning the privies. But I does clean the privies, said Sean in a reasonable voice. Even the garter-robe. And that's going to go for a start, said McGrath, shuddering. One's seen it. Doesn't bother me, miss. It'll give me Wednesday afternoons free, said Sean. But what I meant was, you'll have to go to wait till I've gone down to the armory and fetch my horn for the fanfare. One won't need a fanfare, thank you very much. But you've got to have a fanfare, miss. One can blow my own trumpet, thank you. Yes, miss? Miss what? Miss Queen? And don't forget it. Okay, yeah, I am gonna stop here just because my my voice is starting to go bad. But I hope you've enjoyed it. We're at page 87. We're about maybe a quarter, almost a quarter, looks like, through. But anyway, thank you so much for coming by. My voice is about to keel over sideways, even with a drink. So thank you again for coming by. I really appreciate it. Mark, good to see you again. Same with Roman if he's here, but I think he's probably left. Yeah, so on Friday, we are doing some more Mathy Bath stuff. And then on Saturday I fly out. So I will see what I can bring with me. I don't know if I will be able to stream, but I hope I will. If I will not be able to stream, then I'll be gone for like 2 weeks. But I will bring a laptop and I'll bring a mic, and we might end up with just some really silly or bizarre streams, but I'll do my best. I should be able to, yes. I have a phone that I'm going to set up with an eSIM, so hopefully I'll be able to check my email and stuff, and Discord and all that kind of silliness. But we'll see about streaming. I'd like to keep it up, but depends. And I'll be at the conference, so I have no idea what that schedule is going to look like. So yeah, things are a little up in the air. Yeah, there you go. I can do a reading podcast and just post it. But as of right now, things will be up in the air for the next couple of weeks. I will try and keep up with people and let everyone know what's going on. But Friday will still be a normal stream. So we will reconvene on Friday. Thank you again for hanging out here as we keep reading Lords and Ladies. I really like this book. I love Terry Pratchett. But anyway, have a wonderful evening. I will be back, like I said, on Friday, and we'll figure out from there what's going on. Hopefully I'll have a little bit more information, but we'll see. So, with that, I will say adieu. Enjoy your evening, enjoy your Thursday, and enjoy your Friday until we meet again. All right. Have a good one. Goodbye, everybody.